Back in here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andy Mack. Let's continue on with a developing story and another story with an airplane in the headline. This one out of Atlanta, as of course a plane destined for South Carolina had to turn back due to haze there in the cabin. This a post from the New York Post saying the Delta passengers forced to evacuate the plane on the Atlanta airport runway after smoky haze fills the cabin. So some concern there. 2 people were treated, but they were soon released. We're going to be joined right now by Fox 5's Tyler Finger. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. What more can you tell us about what some of these passengers experienced on this flight?
Yeah, Andy, good evening to you. I mean, talk about a very scary situation for passengers on board that Delta Airlines jet en route to Columbia, South Carolina this morning. Everything was going as planned. They were taking off, they got in the air, and then just within a few minutes, smoke started filling that cabin. They were in the air for just 12 minutes before they made it back on the ground, and then an emergency evacuation right on the runway.
A scare in the sky for Delta Airlines passengers over Atlanta just moments after takeoff Monday morning when smoke filled the cabin.
You heard just about the entire plane, yelling, the cabin's filling with smoke, because no one was doing anything. No one was coming over the intercom saying anything at first.
Kevin McKinney was on board the flight from Atlanta to Columbia, South Carolina, and captured video of the midair scare.
Once we landed, we were being told to keep our heads down, breathe through our clothes.
In a statement, Delta referred to that smoke as a haze and said its crew followed procedures to get the aircraft on the ground as quickly as possible. FlightAware data shows the plane was in the air for just 12 minutes before it was back on the ground at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport around 9 a.m.
The pilot came on and announced evacuate the plane immediately, and it was chaos.
The airline says 94 passengers were on the plane along with 5 crew members. FAA data shows the plane is a 26-year-old Boeing 717.
I've never had to evacuate a plane before. It seems like this is something that's becoming more of an issue lately. Maybe some of these older planes need to be retired and get some new wings in the air.
This is now the 3rd incident in just a week involving a Delta jet. Last week, a Delta regional plane crash-landed in Toronto and ended belly up, injuring more than 20. Then on Saturday, an Australia-bound flight returned to Los Angeles after smoke was detected in a galley.
Statistically, you're still safer in the air than you are driving, so it's not going to deter me that much.
And Delta says 2 customers were treated by EMTs but were released. It's unclear what caused the smoke in the cabin, but the FAA is investigating. Andy?
Yeah, obviously concerning, and like you mentioned, a scare in the air if you're traveling on this, no matter how long or short the flight. Can you talk to me about more of what this individual said? Did he smell the smoke? Do they know where it potentially came from? There are a lot of questions I still have.
Yeah, so basically what he said he heard or saw was the smoke start coming right after the plane took off. They're not really sure where it came from. At least Delta has not revealed that to the media at this point. But what he was saying was they basically were told by the flight crew, obviously in an emergency situation, to cover their mouth using clothing. So like do this as and keep their head down. And so to try to, because in situations smoke rises, so I guess in that situation they were trying to make sure people weren't having trouble breathing. He did say that he may have had maybe a minor lung issue, but he said he wasn't sure if that was the adrenaline or actually any of the smoke that he inhaled, and it's unclear what those 2 injuries were, according to Atlanta Fire Rescue.
That was good detail, and of course you also have to commend the pilots for making that safe return to Atlanta, a very busy airport in and of itself. I do want to ask you, did that passenger have any concerns about potentially getting on a flight in the future? He mentioned the safety of flights being generally safe, but did he have any concerns after experiencing this firsthand?
So he is a frequent flyer. He did tell me that he was rebooked on another flight later on today. I believe it took off somewhere around 1 or 2 o'clock. We talked to him at about 11:30. He was planning to get on board that flight because he had somewhere to go for work. It seems like not only has he traveled pretty much, whether it's weekly or monthly, for years, he also said that his parents had done it for years, traveling. And I think a lot of people realize, as he said in that piece, that you understand that air travel, despite the incidents that you've seen recently, it is still the safest way to travel. You are statistically more likely to get injured or killed in a car crash, especially here in Atlanta if you ever drive through the traffic here. But it's still a very safe way to travel. And as you mentioned, those pilots and the flight crew, everyone is extremely trained, or is trained very well in these situations. Pilots know what to do. They follow a checklist. That's why they were able to get back on the ground within 12 minutes of taking off. For flight attendants specifically, just about 2 years ago, I actually got an inside look at the flight attendant training center for Delta, which is just on the other side of the airport, where you see for 6 weeks all of the training that they go through to make sure that they are prepared for anything. And recently for myself, I was traveling on a flight from Atlanta to Los Angeles on a Delta plane. Sitting in the exit row, I watched as these flight attendants had to pull out their big medical kit. They have a huge kit with pretty much anything you might need. In this case, they had to pull out epinephrine because someone was having an allergic reaction. They were able to have someone on board, an EMT, be able to deliver that, but they're trained not only to deliver emergency medical care, think AED and all of the other things you might need, whether cuts or wounds, or in that case, they would have been able to inject that syringe into that passenger that I personally saw just about a month ago. They are trained for this. They know what they're doing, and that's the thing that I think people should understand. There are situations that do arise, and Delta always tells me when I reach out to them for a comment on something that has happened here at Hartsfield-Jackson or any airport around the country, they say the same thing, that their crews are trained and ready for this, and while something may go not according to plan on board an aircraft, they stand ready to be able to make sure customers can get away from any situation safely, or at least that is their hope and their goal.
That is
Andy?
Very good perspective, Tyler. Thank you so much for your reporting. As always, good insight into this event, but also giving a larger context to it. We appreciate your time here on Live Now.